It is said that there is no age limit in love, but when a person proves this to be true, the whole world turns against them. Even their own family turns against them. In this movie, we also get to see such lovebirds. There are people who do not consider age in love, and that is why their loved ones try to separate them. The movie starts with the main character, Chris, who is a very famous actor, and every one of his movies becomes a super hit. Chris is on a date with his girlfriend. He is in the restaurant and tells her, "I love you very much, so now we should decide about our relationship." His girlfriend is very happy to hear that Chris is going to propose to her. On the other hand, we are shown Zara, a girl stuck in traffic. Zara, who is Chris's assistant, goes to Chris and, hiding from his girlfriend, gives him a gift, which Chris opens in front of his girlfriend. The gift contains earrings. Chris tells his girlfriend that he wants to break up because he has a busy schedule. Hearing this, she starts crying, then takes the gift from him and leaves. Zara takes Chris from there, and on the way, she asks Chris, "How many girls have you broken up with so far?" Chris says, "I really don't have time. That's why I don't even love anyone." Chris tells Zara that he has clothes at his ex's house that she has to bring, and after listening to him, Zara says, "Whenever you break up with a girl, you send me to her house to collect your things." Chris then says, "You are my assistant, so this is your job." In the next scene, we see Zara's mom, Brooke, who is a writer. Brooke was very beautiful, and instead of Zara's mom, she seemed more like her elder sister. Zara was very attached to her mom, so when Brooke was home, Zara spent more and more time with her. When Sarah goes to bed at night, she gets a call from Chris asking her to get some things for him from the supermarket. Chris says, "I don't want to go to the supermarket because too many people gather around me, which makes me very nervous." He tells Sarah to have everything at his house before 8 o'clock in the morning. The next morning, Sarah meets her friend. Sarah says to her, "You should write a script for my boss," but her friend refuses. Then Sarah drives to Chris's house, but she is late, so Chris doesn't let her inside. Chris tells Sarah, "Now you will have to apologize to me, and unless you apologize in writing, you will not be allowed inside." Hearing Chris's words, Sarah gets angry, and instead of apologizing, she jumps over the gate and enters his house. She tells Chris, "I have brought your stuff, but now I don't want to work with you. I thought that one day I would become a big producer, but you always give me small jobs. I am better off working for someone else than for you." She leaves Chris's house after telling him that they should no longer work together. When Sarah gets home, one of her friends comes to visit. Sarah tells her that she has quit working for Chris because he can't see beyond himself. Instead of responding, Sarah's friend says, "I am going to meet my boyfriend, so could you bring me a nice dress of your mom's? I want to look very beautiful." Sarah gives her a dress, and then she meets with Brooke. She tells Brooke that she quit her job, saying, "I have no value in Chris's eyes, so now I will not work for him." Meanwhile, after Sarah leaves, Chris realizes that he cannot manage his work alone. Chris decides he should apologize to Sarah to convince her to work with him again. The next day, Chris goes to Sarah's house, but she is not home, so he meets Brooke and asks her who she is. Brooke introduces herself, and Chris is surprised to learn that she is Sarah's mother. He says, "You are very young. It seems like Sarah was born when you were in school." Chris tells Brooke that Sarah got angry with him and quit her job, but he wants to rehire her, so he has come to apologize, which makes Brooke happy. Then Chris starts looking at old photos of Brooke and comments on how beautiful she is. Chris learns that Brooke's husband has died. Brooke tells him that it has been years since her husband's death, but she is very happy with her daughter now. Chris also learns that Brooke is a writer and that she has written a book. Tension between them grows as they look at each other. Brooke gives her book to Chris, and then they come close to each other and kiss. They don't stop there. They go into a room and start romancing. At the same time, Sarah, unaware that Chris is there, arrives home. She goes to Brooke's room, where she is shocked to see them romancing. After recovering from the shock, she steps out of the room and starts talking to Brooke and Chris. During all this, Sarah is injured from a fall, so Brooke and Chris take her to the doctor. Chris tries to explain to Sarah, saying, "I wanted to talk to your mom about you, so I came to your house." Sarah angrily taunts him, saying, "Did you want to talk about me before or after romancing my mom?" Chris replies, "I talked to Brooke about you first because I wanted to get you back on the job." After returning home, Chris tells Sarah, "I want you to stay in this job because I can't do any work without you." Sarah responds, "I can't work with you anymore because you took advantage of my mom. I've tried to support you, and I don't want you around my mom again." Chris admits, "This is all my fault, so I won't be seen with your mom again, but I want you to stay with me." Since it was Sarah's dream to work as a producer, she reluctantly agreed out of ambition. The next day, Chris goes to the set, where he introduces Sarah as a producer. Sarah is very happy to fulfill her dream. Meanwhile, in the evening, Brooke receives a message from Chris inviting her to dinner. Brooke dresses up and goes to the restaurant, where Chris is waiting for her. Upon seeing her, Chris starts praising her. During their conversation, Chris tells her, "Sarah has set a condition for working with me, that I should not have a relationship with you." Brooke responds, "This is unfair to both of us. We are happy with this relationship, so no one should impose restrictions on us." However, their newfound love makes them want to forget all restrictions and live their lives, so they get lost in their romance, ignoring everyone else. When Brooke returns home that night, Sarah is waiting for her. She asks Brooke, "Where were you?" Brooke replies, "I will tell you everything truthfully, but you must promise not to get angry at me." She explains that Chris had invited her to dinner and insists, "He is a very nice guy. We just had dinner, nothing more." After listening, Sarah says, "It's impossible that you both just had dinner. Now you're lying to me." Without arguing, Brooke goes to her room and calls her mom, telling her, "I lied to Sarah because the guy I'm in a relationship with is Sarah's boss, and she doesn't like him at all." Brooke's mom advises, "You should do what you feel is right." On the other hand, Sarah calls her friend. When she talks about the relationship between her mom and Chris, her friend says, "Your mom is so beautiful that any boy could fall in love with her." This makes Sarah even more upset, but she realizes that her mom is also a woman with her own feelings and decides not to ignore them. As a result, Brooke starts spending more and more time with Chris. She goes wherever Chris invites her, and they both start getting closer. Sarah's friend visits her house, but at that moment, Brooke leaves in a hurry. When Sarah goes to Brooke's room, she finds a script that Brooke has written. Seeing this, Sarah understands that Brooke has gone to see Chris, so she goes with her friend to the place where Chris's event is being held. Somehow, she gets inside and sees Brooke and Chris romancing. Seeing this, Sarah confronts Brooke, telling her she's wasting her time with someone who is very selfish and doesn't care about anyone except himself. Brooke tries to defend Chris, but Sarah tells her that Chris has had relationships with many girls, only to leave each one after a few days. All those girls realized the truth about Chris only after he used them and broke their hearts. Brooke responds, "That's not true. I've found true love after 11 years. After your dad, Chris is the only one who can love me." But Sarah gets angry and tells Brooke not to compare Chris to her dad. She warns, "If you stay in a relationship with Chris, I will leave your house." Saying this, Sarah leaves, and Brooke is left feeling very upset. Sarah goes to her friend's house and starts living there. Brooke tells Chris about all of this and says, "I think we should end this relationship now because I can't see my daughter like this." Chris agrees, and then Brooke goes to her mom's house, where preparations for Christmas are underway. Her mom asks, "How's your boyfriend?" Brooke replies, "My boyfriend is very good," but Sarah, hearing this, Brooke's mom interrupts and says that while Brooke should think about Sarah, she's also a human being who doesn't need to sacrifice her own happiness. She suggests that Brooke invite Chris over, and she will call Sarah. When Sarah arrives, Brooke's mom explains everything to her. Sarah protests, saying that Brooke shouldn't be doing this, but her grandmother explains that Brooke is both a mother and a woman, and Sarah needs to understand Brooke's feelings. As Sarah watches from the window, she starts getting angry when she sees Chris arrive. Brooke's mom tells her, "Chris was invited here not by Brooke, but by me." They all have dinner together, and during the meal, Chris shares his story about how hard he has worked to get to where he is today. The grandmother is very pleased with Chris. She likes him, and while talking to him alone after dinner, she tells Brooke, "Your choice is very good, and Chris will keep you very happy." Now even Sarah will not have any issues with this. However, Brooke responds, "I don't want to make the same mistake. My husband loved me very much, but in his last days, he wanted to divorce me." Brooke continues, "He never told me about his illness, and although he wrote many books, none of them became famous. It was a very difficult time for me. I never told you about the divorce, nor did I let Sarah know anything about it." Her mom reassures her, "You also have the right to be happy. If you marry Chris and make a new beginning, you will be very happy." The next morning, as they were all leaving grandmother's house, Sarah accepted Brooke and Chris's relationship. Sarah notices a gift in Chris's car, earrings. These were the same earrings Chris had given to his previous girlfriend. After returning home, Sarah confronts Chris in front of Brooke, saying, "I saw these earrings in your car, and I know you've come here to break up with Brooke. Whenever you want to break up with someone, you gift them these earrings." Chris tries to explain himself, but Brooke interrupts, saying, "There's no point in this now. You should leave." After Chris leaves, Brooke, feeling heartbroken, tells Sarah, "Couldn't you have found another way to break my heart?" She then asks Sarah to leave her house as well. Sarah goes to her friend's house and explains what happened. Her friend, upset, tells Sarah, "You never care about anyone except yourself. I had a breakup with my boyfriend, but you didn't even ask me about it." Hearing this, Sarah apologizes and tries to make amends. Sarah decides she won't work with Chris anymore, so she goes to his house to tell him. Chris explains, "I took the earrings to Brooke because I wanted to break up with her, but when I saw the book she wrote, I realized I couldn't find a better woman than Brooke. I really love her. her, but I will stay away from Brooke for your sake. Hearing this, Sarah realizes she has made a big mistake. She goes home to find Brooke, only to discover that she has left for her grandmother's house. Feeling remorseful, Sarah goes to Chris and takes him to a supermarket, telling him, "You haven't done proper shopping in 10 years, so buy whatever your heart desires today." Meanwhile, grandmother brings Brooke to the same supermarket and sends her inside to get some things. When Brooke learns that Chris is there, Sarah arranges for them to meet. She tells Chris and Brooke that it was her idea to bring them together because she finally understood their feelings. After Sarah leaves, Chris tells Brooke, "I can't live without you anymore." Brooke responds, "I don't know what will happen to us tomorrow." Chris reassures her, "We are happy today, and that's enough for me." They kiss, and Sarah and grandmother, who are watching from the car, are overjoyed to see them together. It was their plan to reunite Brooke and Chris, and the movie ends on a happy note.